Welcome back to Killer Fun, where we explore the intersection of crime and entertainment every other week. I'm Christy.
And I'm Jackie.
And today, we have Sundance darling, now streaming on Netflix, Emily the Criminal. Circumstances are a great predictor, maybe greater than actual malice in many cases, I think.
That's true.
I think that a lot of people who end up being criminals end up there by happenstance almost.
Right.
There are plenty of people who go into a line of criminal behavior knowingly with their eyes open. Mm-hmm. But I would say there's maybe a greater portion of those people who are just trying to make both ends meet.
Yeah. And I think this story did a good job of kind of showing how one mistake early.
Uh-huh. Yes.
That's not necessarily super like criminally sophisticated. It's not even intended. It's one of those, she broke the law.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Okay. It was a bad decision.
Right. And it has had a snowball effect.
Has a snowball effect far beyond what it ought to.
Right.
And in that case, it shows how our system is actually producing criminals.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about this amazing cast.
Oh, it is an amazing cast.
It's really good. Aubrey Plaza is Emily.
I like Aubrey Plaza. It's funny because I haven't actually seen a whole lot. I haven't seen her whole catalog of things.
Right.
But you know me.
Yeah.
Well, this is a crimey podcast, so I feel like this is on brand for me. Criminal Minds.
Yes.
Obviously. Like, this is where I think of her from.
Right.
You know?
But she's been a comedic actress.
Yes. Oh, and Parks and Rec.
Yeah, she was, April in Parks and Rec. Her big breakthrough was the comedic role, which was Judd Apatow's Funny People in 2009.
Okay.
And it was like right after that she booked Parks and Rec, spent years being funny on that, and she's going to be in a romantic comedy, which I think looks really great because I have a little bit of a guilty pleasure of I enjoy romantic comedies, even if they're not very good, and sometimes if they are good, I mean sometimes I like the ones that aren't very good a little better, but this one's called My Old Ass, which I think sounds really funny. It's like a woman travels back into her past and warns her young self not to date this guy. And she's like, oh, awesome, I can do that. And then she meets the guy she's supposed to avoid and realizes like he is magnetic. It's in post-production. I have no idea when it's coming out, but I think I want to see it.
Okay, that does sound actually pretty fun. Mm-hmm. I do like I'm not a big fan of the Hallmark style.
Sure.
But I mean, Sweet Home Alabama, yes, sure. Please.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So certain things.
Yeah. Theo Rossi is Yusef. And I'm like, he looks so familiar. What was he in? He was Juice Ortiz in Sons of Anarchy. And that's why he looks so familiar to me. He was in a ton of episodes of that. Not a lead character, but there.
Okay.
And he's going to be in a sci-fi thriller called Rachel that also looks interesting.
Ooh,
so
love me some sci-fi.
Mm-hmm. Jonathan Aguadori is Khalil Yusef's cousin, and he can go from looking friendly to frightening really, really fast.
Yeah.
Like there's a scene where they're visiting Yusef's mother, and Khalil comes in, and it's like he goes from really friendly to very threatening in like moments. It's interesting. And
it's a weird dissolve between the two that happens very fast too. So it's not even like a heartbeat where it's like boom, you know.
Yeah.
It's what's happening? The world's changing.
Yeah. He was in a show called Snowfall with another actor that we've talked about, Damson Idris, who played Khalid in Swarm.
Okay.
And Jonathan plays Khalil. Mm-hmm. Similar names in another show together.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's funny.
Yeah. And then Megalyn Ekakunwok is Emily's friend Liz. And I had to figure out why she looked so familiar to me. Mm-hmm. And it was because she was in the reboot of 90210.
Oh.
Yeah. like in 2011, 2012.
Oh, I don't know that I saw that reboot.
It's one of my guilty pleasures. All the 90210s.
Yeah.
A guilty pleasure for me.
Okay.
So,
I saw the reunion where they all got back together and did stuff.
No, this was like...
Yeah, I remember this reboot happening before that, and I never saw it.
I loved it. It was awful, trashy soap opera television. But I loved it.
That's great.
All right, recap. A woman in her 20s made a mistake and it cost her everything. She is drowning in college loan debt for a degree she couldn't finish, working a dead-end job with little chance of escape. Emily is desperate and agrees to participate as a low-level member of a credit card fraud to make some fast cash. Emily's good at it. She's smart. She's hardworking. She's able to make some real money. She and the main contact with the fraud ring, Yusuf, become friendly. Both are working towards a goal that will allow them to leave a criminal life behind. Yusuf is trying to make money to move into real estate. Emily desires to put her unfinished college degree to use in commercial art. Nefarious characters come in the form of other criminals, as we'd expect, but also in venues where we expect people to behave better. Will she make it out? Well, it's no surprise. Critics love this.
Of course.
Of course they did. 94%. But audiences are I was impressed. Audiences are 79%.
Yeah.
I was like, okay.
Okay.
I'm pretty okay with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this one was
it was it was very evenly paced, but I found it got a little slow at times.
Yeah.
But it also wasn't a super long movie. It's only like an hour 39.
Right. Thank
it's
God.
Not like longer than that.
I mean, still paused it 5 times because it was like, I gotta move, do something, whatever. But it wasn't that long, which was great. It was so poignant, the story.
Yeah.
So I really appreciated that. And then was so annoyed that they made such a poignant story so boring. Because Aubrey Plaza is not boring.
Right.
Like, this film made her boring, which means she really just nailed the character to a T, and that was awesome. But I felt guilty because I was bored. Oh, I did not like this movie.
Oh, really? See, I wasn't bored.
I was so bored.
But I felt like it was almost too lean.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yes,
like
I think that's
kind
fair.
of almost wanted a little more. I felt for these characters, but I wanted a little more reason to fall in love with them,
right?
And
like,
root for them in their poor behavior.
Yeah, I needed something to. Oh, okay. Well, let me put it this way. Maybe there came a point in the story where it became so predictable I didn't need to watch the film.
Oh,
and at that point, I was like, now you've got to entertain me.
Oh, okay.
And at this point, you've made your point. You've made the story. It's not that hard. It's a concise problem in our society. You're not the first one to tell the story. Mm-hmm. Bless you. You're not. But you might be the first one to tell it in this format, in this media, maybe to these audiences.
Okay.
Maybe, I don't know. It wasn't a surprising story to me.
Okay.
And I think that they were really banking on the story being kind of novel.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, oh, you mean one mistake as a kid really screws up the future? Okay.
Oh, you mean she's struggling with college loan debt, which millions upon millions of Americans struggle with and therefore understand?
Yep. You mean that she has to put on a tap dance for everybody who asks her about her criminal record because she's in that moment basically got to become a showman to show herself and explain why she's going to be a great person now and she's left that life behind, but not everybody has that in them to just do that constantly. And I mean, it's not a new story. Yeah. And so I felt like it was a little bit like of a news story to a certain demographic that goes to Sundance.
Okay.
And I say that super judgy. Uh-huh. And I'm sorry. Not sorry.
No, I understand.
But am I right? Like, it's not that there are people at Sundance who aren't like very aware of today's problems, but they're just
The people who are aware of the problems that are in this movie are not people who have the wherewithal in general to be able to make a movie that ends up at Sundance.
Yes. Yes, yes. And there you have it. So I'm glad the story's being told there, because maybe that will change some of that.
Sure.
And maybe, but as long as it doesn't cause a not in my backyard mentality, which is kind of usually the problem.
Right. Well,
right.
Speaking of a not in my backyard mentality, I have a little bit of trivia.
Ooh, hit me.
It was shot in the quote unquote worst parts of LA over a 20-day span. So it had a very short filming frame and in a sort of unusual environment. The very worst parts. I'm like, they look like normal neighborhoods mostly to me.
Yeah. So what do they, I mean, it wasn't Skid Row. So, hello.
Yeah, it's not the very worst parts.
The very worst parts, huh?
And unusual for a crime film, no one uses a gun.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
No one uses a gun in the whole movie. We see tasers. We see tasers. So we see pepper spray. We see people hit one another.
Oh, yeah.
But nobody uses a gun.
Nobody uses a gun. Huh?
Which I thought was good.
Well, that's interesting.
Aubrey Plaza also talked about what she found intriguing about this part.
Oh, okay.
So an article on goldderby.com has some quotes from Aubrey about this movie. Okay. She says, the whole movie is about someone trying to get their power back. And that was what was so enticing about playing this character. She said, most movies, you find characters starting way at the bottom and then you see them lose everything. And then they get to the point in the middle of the movie where they've had enough. This movie, she's already had enough. Mm-hmm. Like she starts where we join her. She is at the bottom.
Which I really liked.
Right.
Like I said, there are things about this movie I really liked.
There was a lot of things that, like, if we just talk about it, I liked all the parts we're going to talk about.
Uh-huh. But as a movie?
Yeah, there was a little something more that I wanted. And I feel bad even saying that because I don't exactly know what that more would have looked like. I don't know
I don't know what it is, but I can tell you why it didn't hit for me. And, maybe that'll help me figure out what it was that was missing. But me, I don't necessarily with the slow.
Right.
I'm not necessarily with the slow.
You're more of an action.
A little bit more of an action. I think really, I say action, but what it is I like to be entertained by movies. Or I want to be philosophically, psychologically challenged.
Sure.
Where I'm learning something.
Right.
So if it's not entertaining and I'm not learning something, I'm bored. That's where it was. I learned nothing.
Okay.
And that's would be what I wanted. Maybe I wanted to see this story, but learn something about the characters in these situations, learn something about the system that was particularly harsh. Instead, I kept thinking, oh, really? You're going to make all this cash and go buy real estate. Ooh, so part 2 is the money laundering movie? Because I don't know how you're going to make that jump, but cute. Right? Uh-huh. So there's a lot of talk going on there that I'm like, oh, come on. They're so smart. They're pulling off this massive credit card thing, which they barely even explain to you. And you're like, okay, I'll take some leaps and jumps and fill in the dots. But then you're going to talk about how you're just going to go buy real estate and act like you can just do that. Right. And without even broaching the fact that if you can't get a job because you had a DUI when you were younger, you're not going to walk away with a boatload of cash and be like, excuse me.
Yeah.
Cash offer for a piece of real estate. It's not happening. Movies make these kind of suspend your reality all the time where they make a lot of cash and then they somehow hop the border to somewhere else. And you're like, okay, I know there's ways to do this. I know there is. You can suspend your belief. But there was multiple comments about the real estate thing and about other little things where you're kind of like, now we're just talking to two really dumb criminals. But I know that that's not who they are.
Right.
So now I'm kind of like, actually, I feel like the movie went from trying to tell their story to actually sort of judging them.
Mm-hmm. Well, yes. Well, Yusuf comes across as a smart man. Mm-hmm. He seems like a smart man. He's not an unintelligent person.
Right.
But he's not a smart criminal.
Well,
I mean, this is the long and short of it.
Yeah. I mean, they had quite the little operation.
That happened. They had quite the little operation, but he was able to be had.
See the predictability. He was all like, tomorrow morning. I'm like, tomorrow morning, fool. You got no time to waste, honey. You need to go fire up the engine, kick the tires and light the fires. Right. You better get there now because they're clearing it out as we speak. And then his little innocent self shows up at the storeroom tomorrow morning. It's gone. You think?
Yeah.
Bless your heart.
Yeah, he has to call the bank. I'm like, dude.
Oh, bless his heart.
I'm like, dude, you went to the storeroom first. The first thing you should have done was clean out the bank account.
I mean, thank you.
That should have been.
But he waited tomorrow morning. No, honey. Yeah, so there's a little bit of that. Maybe that I felt like at that point, I know we want to tell this story of systemic injustice and mass incarceration and overreach of, government and hiring practices and all of these kind of things. But at some point, they really just sort of, I don't know, drop the ball. I don't know. But maybe I'm not the person they told the story to. And I have to remember that.
Yeah.
They didn't tell me that story, but they didn't entertain me either. So
so that's on them.
But Aubrey Plaza, and I thought the actors, all of them, they all did great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Believable, the whole 9 yards.
Right. Sure. So normally I don't start Is It True until after the break, but I need to give you some background before I start into the aid portion of this, which I like to do before the break.
Okay.
So we're starting Is It True?
Okay.
Before the break.
Woo-hoo.
And then we'll do more after. So the very first interview that she's in that opens the movie, she's in with this office manager, and he says they don't pull a background check as a matter of routine. And then he says he has one. And I'm like, hold up.
Is he allowed to lie to her like that?
Oh, absolutely not.
I thought so.
Okay. So an employer, before giving you a job or a promotion, can ask to run a background check.
Yeah, that's why we have to fill out the little form.
They must get written permission from you before they do this.
Right.
He had not done that.
He had not done that.
He, in fact, lied to her and said that he hadn't done it until he pulled it out.
I thought that was a little fishy, but I was like, maybe that's a state thing. I don't know.
No.
Okay.
It's a federal law in the U.S. Alrighty. So an employer can ask about your employment history, your education. They can do some background check as far as public records go. So financial or credit history, your public social media, things like that. They can't ask you about medical or genetic information. Now, they might be able to find some of your criminal background history on like a normal sort of, situation when they're doing just a search on the internet. They might be able to find that. Now, if they pay somebody to do the background search for them, this is where it gets sticky.
Where you have had to have given consent.
You have to have given consent. And they can't tell you that you can't apply for a job if you have a criminal background. That is a discriminatory practice that they are not allowed to engage in.
Right.
When there is a background check, they must tell you if they could use this information about whether they're going to hire or promote you or fire you. And they have to take certain steps in order for that to be a reason to do it. So basically, they have to give you a summary of your rights, and they have to give you a chance to address it in case it's inaccurate.
Right.
Or in case there were extenuating circumstances that you can explain, which...
This is the song and dance I'm talking about, the tap dance that they want you to do.
Right.
When they do find out that you have a background check, or a criminal background situation, that they really want you to do this very American dream tap dance.
Yes.
Right? With sparklers and 4th of July fireworks to get past. And so it's almost like you're up against a parole board again. Yeah. Or something like that,
Exactly. Now, if you get to a job interview and someone has pulled a background check on you without you having given written permission, you have to sign a form and that you have read that they are going to pull the background check on you. then you should absolutely contact the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission. And if they've rejected you based on your criminal record and didn't provide you the required notices, there are notices that employers are required to provide. If they don't do that, that's when you report to the FTC that they work to prevent fraudulent, deceptive, and unfair business practices in the marketplace. This qualifies.
Okay.
You can also go to the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, the EEOC, and they can also help you. It is their job to enforce federal laws that make it illegal to discriminate against an applicant because of a person's race, color, sex, national origin, age, disability, or genetic information. So that includes things like pre-employment medical inquiries are rarely something that there are a few jobs where they are allowed to require some of that information, that most jobs that you're going to be applying for are not allowed to ask any of that, including if you're pregnant or plan to become pregnant.
Right.
Those are also protected classes. So know that. If they use an arrest or conviction to make an employment decision, again, they have to provide you with information, and it should not be an automatic bar to employment. So if you've been discriminated against because you have something in your past, there is help for you in the United States.
Good.
So
Love it.
yes. All right. So we're going to come back after this quick break with more Is It True? Psychology Break and Real Life.
So here's how it works. Christy wrecks her search history. Hey, an essay. We promise it's nothing more nefarious than a podcast. To find out what's true, some of the psychological motivations behind the characters' actions, and real-life applications that relate to our topic. I have no idea what Christy decided to look up. Could be the same thing that captured my curiosity or something I never thought of.
Is it true? Continued.
Continue.
Is Emily the Criminal based on a true story?
No.
Collider says no.
Haha.
Yeah.
I didn't think so, and I
Right.
didn't look it up.
Right. I mean, it's one of those, like, it's relatable enough that it makes total sense that it's not based on a true story, but it feels like it could be.
It could be. Yeah,
Yeah.
I felt like it might be, but I didn't think it was. Something about it just gave me the impression that this wasn't true
Yeah.
or inspired by.
And I think you're right when you said that maybe you weren't quite the target audience of people who needed to see that this is a struggle.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Because John Patton Ford, who's the director, had, he didn't say exactly this. This is paraphrased.
Okay.
But he said it's a crime drama. It's a work of fiction. It's a story that needs to be told, a new kind of crime story, a commentary on how the current system is stacked against these young borrowers who are trying to better themselves and acquire the skills necessary to be a productive member of society. So really what he was trying to do was show people who may not be aware
Yeah,
that it's the system is stacked against many young people in a way that's detrimental. We're going to talk more about that.
good, because there's so much to talk about. Because that I'm passionate about. You know, like you and I were talking through the break a little bit about, just because of, my career history and what I've studied, I've had the opportunity to sort of dig into it a little bit and learn a decent amount of how this operates, like when you have somebody coming in and they're asking for help or for resources or for spiritual support because of these situations, you end up learning a little bit about that over time.
Yes.
And you would hope that most people would recognize, but making that systemic jump and recognizing how a system is actually working against an individual is such a hard thing to do right up until the second it happens to you.
I mean,
and then there's no learning curve.
right.
When it happens to you, all the pieces fall into place. And all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, I see the entire thing. It's like the Matrix. All of a sudden you can see it. Right. But up until that place, it's really hard to admit that the system may be responsible for some of your success as well.
So are dummy shoppers real?
Well, yeah, I think dummy shoppers are weird.
Yeah.
Real? What, real?
They'll wheel.
Real? Real.
Yes, they are. That this is a known thing, according to Stylecaster, that it's a real scam. These people do make quick cash this way, where they use a fake, stolen, or cloned credit card to make an expensive purchase. In 2021, the FTC said they had 2.8 million fraud reports from consumers. Consumers lost about $5.8 billion to fraud in 2021, an increase of 70% over 2020.
It's terrible right now.
I mean,
I'm on my 3rd credit card number.
Really?
In months.
Really? Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yep. Because there's particular scams going around that the banks can't catch.
Right. They don't catch them quickly enough. So John Patton Ford, who is the director of Emily the Criminal, said the idea of the dummy shoppers came from a actual dummy shopping ring that was in his neighborhood in Los Angeles.
Okay.
He knew there was some kind of criminal activity happening, but he didn't quite know what it was until he saw a bust and then read about it on the cover of the LA Times, that the FBI had arrested nearly 100 people, and you could read the entire affidavit on the internet. So I read it all and learned about one of the crimes that this organization was doing, and it was this elaborate dummy shopper scheme. So that's where he got the idea. So from. it's not a true story, but it's kind of like
inspired by. That's what that was about.
Inspired by a little bit. So
a little bit.
He got mad because in the course of the 20 days that they filmed this movie, he had his credit card stolen and couldn't buy groceries.
Oh, that sucks.
And he was mad.
Oh, yeah, I'd be furious. Yeah. The irony. Ugh.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So Emily was working for a catering company doing deliveries.
Yeah, but it seemed like almost like a catering company meets Uber Eats, but like Uber Eats with a kitchen.
Okay, so what I think it was, it kind of.
Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So basically, it was the kitchen that made the food. Mm-hmm. That's the job. And then all of the people doing the deliveries were independent contractors,
right.
We're quoting. So it's like working for Uber Eats, but maybe a little more predictable. Okay. Like you might have, every week we're going to the Wells Fargo, or every day we're going to this place, or every month we're going to this place. And I know I'm going to have work to do every day.
Right. But there was a point where she's waiting for an order.
Right.
To come through. Like you would if you're doing Uber or DoorDash or whatever. You know, like she's waiting for that, but it's with the company.
Right.
So that was an interesting thing. I was like, is that real?
Yep.
Okay.
So Cater Source has a whole article about this, hiring for your catering business independent contractors. Now they had a series of articles about interns, contractors, and employees. And this was the independent contractor situation. And they point out, Michelle Loretta, who wrote the article, points out, I've seen far too many people staff their catering businesses with freelancers when individuals should be considered employees. This can get you into some dangerous waters with the IRS.
Yeah, and that's kind of what she was complaining about, right?
I mean, she was like, we have rights. Just because he's like, you don't have any rights, you're an independent contractor. And I'm like, this is terrible.
Like, no, he's just a terrible boss. They absolutely have rights.
He's breaking the law, basically. Yeah. I mean, here she is, the place she's interviewing, breaking the law. The place she's working, the only place that'll hire her because of her criminal background is a place that's breaking the law.
Right.
Everybody's breaking the law. Why not her?
Why? I get that.
I mean, this is, unfortunately, this is where you end up. So she goes on to talk about what you should do when you have an independent contractor is that you have to remember that they don't work just for you. You can't expect the same level of loyalty.
Oh, yeah.
And you should not, which obviously her boss at the catering company absolutely did. That they really should bring some sort of expertise, and that even though a catering company isn't required to pay taxes for an independent contractor, you are required to provide them with a 1099 form annually if you provide more than $600 worth of service to you, which I'm sure she did.
Oh, I'm so certain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, there should be protections.
But
she did really well with the first dummy shopping experience that she had. And I think that Yusuf thought she was really cute and wanted to see her again.
I think so too. I got the impression.
He's cute too. From the beginning, he's cute too. She's cute. They were cute for They were cute for each other.
Yeah, I wish them all the luck with their real estate and art endeavors.
There we go. So Emily pays for part of a car with a stolen credit card. She's got with what we assume is a fake cashier's check for the down payment, and she's going to pay with the rest with a card. Can you buy a car with a credit card?
Okay, I'm going to say yes.
Okay.
I'm going to say because yes, you can, but it definitely depends on the dealership, and it depends on the card, and it depends on the state. Yeah. And also that whole scene, that was probably the most tense scene in the entire movie.
Oh my, I mean,
there. That was entertaining.
Yeah. Yeah. Because she's got 8 minutes
Oh my
from
God,
the time
I'm
that he runs the credit card until she needs to be far enough away.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know it's not good. She's not walking into a dealership and playing this. She's going into some locked room with the door closed behind her. No, sir.
Yeah.
Ooh. Everything's not on the up and up there.
No. So it does depend on the car dealership. Many car dealerships will not take a credit card.
Right.
If they do take a credit card, they may limit how much you can put on the credit card.
Right.
And if they take a credit card for the full amount, you're going to pay the fees, the credit card fees. They're going to add that on.
Okay.
You're not going to just do this. Now, I have purchased a car where we financed some and we put some down and we put some on our credit card because we were like,
points.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. I was like, I'm like, is there a fee to use our credit card? He's like, after $5,000, yes, but up to $5,000 you can put it on your credit card.
Right.
He's like, people come in for work and they need $5,000 worth of work done. They can put that on their credit card. He's like, I can put $5,000 of your down payment on a credit card. I'm like, excellent. I will bring a check for the next part and then we'll finance the rest.
So
there we go.
Similar situation. So at one point we were closing. It was getting close to closing time. We didn't have our checkbook because we hadn't planned on closing the deal that day.
Oh, hardly.
Right? Because very, very rarely do we not go home and come back. I don't remember the situation, but I do remember it being a situation of, well, by the time we go home and get the check, come up back, why don't we just do it this way? And so we used a credit card and then whatever, because it was, because we could finish it that time. And otherwise it would have had to wait till the next day. And it was like, whatever, let's just do this and get done. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a whole situation. So usually car dealers are going to limit you to $5,000 or $10,000. And, anything north of $5,000, you can probably expect to pay the transaction fee. But really, should you buy a car on a credit card?
Not so much, I don't think.
It really depends. Probably not. Now, occasionally you might have a 0% interest for a certain amount of time on a card. You have to pay it off within that certain amount of time. So if you can make that work, so say you have 18 months of no interest on new purchases or whatever, and you have a limit high enough to be able to cover this, you darn well better be able to pay every penny of that back within the 18 months, or else you pay interest on the entire amount Yeah, that's how they get you. They don't tell you this. So if you get like a Home Depot card and to put a appliance purchase on, and you have 12 months no interest to pay. If you have $1 left from that original purchase, 366 days later you pay interest on the entire amount.
And that's fine print right there.
It is super fine print, and they don't tell you that.
No.
So know that.
That's good to know. That's good to know.
And don't buy a car on a credit card.
Just don't.
I mean, it's really like not a good use of your money.
Accentuating circumstances only.
I mean, for real.
Really.
So Emily interviews for a position at her friend Liz's employer.
Oh, yeah.
That turns out to be an unpaid quote unquote internship. Remember when I said there were nefarious people outside of the crime area? So we met the office manager who we talked about before the break. Then this kind of working for 5 to 6 months as a normal employee, basically, to see if you can get the job and calling it an internship is illegal.
I thought so. Thank you. Okay. This was the second scene that I thought was it was entertaining.
Yeah, it was super entertaining. I was like,
I wanted to see her go off more. But yeah, because I was like, okay, internship, but it's full time.
Yeah, she's like, what are the hours if this is an internship?
Right.
She's trying to think, how can I accept this internship and still work a job and support myself?
That's exactly what she's going through in her mind. And then the lady is all like, regular hours?
Yeah, like you don't expect to have another job while you do this. I want all of your time.
Like, what? It's ridiculous. But that exists.
Yes.
And it's not okay.
It's not okay. Like literally... Business News Daily had a whole article about when internships are legal and when they are not. So you might look for an internship because you want fresh perspective and it aids people in getting experience if they're young and in school or they're making a big job change, stuff like that. There's
reasons.
There's times. It has to be more than mutually beneficial. So it can't just be she had an internship and it's going to be beneficial on her resume. Therefore, it's beneficial to her. If it's an unpaid internship, the intern has to receive more benefit than the company.
Okay. Well, and because the boss there said basically that the full-time job that was to come after was not even guaranteed.
No.
This wasn't like you're guaranteed the job unless. It wasn't some sort of probation.
No, it was an extended job interview.
Yeah, that's bananas.
Yes. So just because you title them an intern does not waive the right to not pay them. Interns are not free labor. In fact, in California, where she was, it has one of the strictest stances on unpaid internships. It requires all programs to be conducted through and supervised by an accredited school or vocational program. Employers must submit an internship proposal to the Division of Labor Standards Enforcement before hiring interns. Any internship that does not meet these standards must pay at least minimum wage. Fully breaking the law.
Yeah.
Fully breaking California law, not just federal law.
Yeah. I'm trying to act like it was so big and so important that, oh my gosh. And what the revelation in that scene that we realize that Liz isn't paid.
Right.
Oh, wow.
Right. Yeah.
What is happening? That debt is just racking up and racking up and racking up.
Yep. For a job she may or may not get and is now in jeopardy because she put her friend up for this job.
Yep. And our friend let her have it.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm like,
I feel bad for Liz for that.
I mean,
because in some ways, in the same way that Emily gets roped into doing this criminal stuff there, the same way that Emily gets wrapped up into a criminal line of work because of what's happened to her with her like debt and all of that kind of stuff, her friend from college is in the same exact position, just in the corporate version of it.
Right. She's working for free.
Yeah.
Trying to keep, do a good job and keep her head afloat.
Just so that she can make it.
Because this woman,
I
want to use more colorful language, but I'm not going to, doesn't want to pay minimum wage.
I know, even minimum wage. Or just even a negotiated stipend, or at least some anything.
I mean,
but
anything.
It was like a big fat. I paid my dues.
Yeah, and she was like, "But you got paid.
But you got paid." Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
it was crazy.
Lots of nefarious people. All of the sources that we use to inform our discussion here on Killer Fun Podcast can be found on our social media. Join us on Facebook at Killer Fun Podcast, exploring the intersection of crime and entertainment. You can find us on Twitter at Killer Fun Pod, or you can send us an email at killerfunpodcast@gmail.com, and I'd be happy to share a link to whatever information you're looking for. We love to hear from you. You might learn a little something too. Psychology break.
Ooh, okay. Ooh,
So
there's a lot to talk about, I think.
We see a lot of people blame other people for their bad behavior.
Yeah.
We see the office manager who blames that people aren't forthcoming about their criminal history, so he's got to pull the background checks. We see the boss at the ad agency who's not paying interns, fully breaking the law. We even see Yusuf, when they end up in a tough spot, blame Emily.
Yeah.
Why do people do this?
Yeah. Okay. That's a good one.
Psychology today, that it's really a defense mechanism. It's an unconscious process for a lot of people, because when you accept responsibility for this sort of bad behavior, you feel things like guilt and shame. Imagine. We don't want to feel the guilt and the shame.
Yeah.
So they talk about a bunch of research that they did, and the research concluded that if you are poor at emotional regulation, you are more likely to blame your mistakes or misfortune on other people. So when we experience negative emotions, poor emotion regulators are more likely to assume other people are responsible for their own bad choices. And blaming others appears to reduce a person's own negative emotions. So finger pointing comes from a place of vulnerability.
Ah, yes, absolutely.
So,
yep. And it's one of those logical fallacies. We tend to blame others for our own mistakes and blame ourselves for our good fortunes.
That's right.
And then we also blame others for their own bad fortune. And then we credit the system or ourselves for their good fortune.
Right.
It's interesting how that works.
Right.
You know, we just don't like negative.
Yeah, we don't want to feel bad about ourselves.
No, we don't want to feel bad about ourselves. We don't like negative. And that's because we don't know how to deal with negativity. Right? The avoidance of negativity is so unhealthy.
Well, that's exactly what I'm going to talk about next.
Yes.
So when we put the blame on others, we pay a price.
There you go.
So Harley Therapy from the UK has a whole article about this. So we have a self-serving bias where we take credit for ourselves for good things and lay the blame on other people. And we tend to blame people who are close to us. Now, she wasn't close to professional people, but she was pretty close to Yusuf at that point. And he's blaming her, and it can have a really bad effect on relationships and families and careers. We do it because blaming people is easy. It means you don't have to be vulnerable because accountability is a vulnerable process.
It is.
Blaming other feeds your need for control. But the flip side to that is when you blame somebody else for your problems, you actually give up your control. It makes you feel like you have control. But when you say, I had no choice because of this situation or this person, you're admitting that you had no control over the situation at any point to begin with.
Right. And I think the weird irony here is that where we were talking about the system, right? The system really does create these situations. And there's a bit, so people would be like, see, there's not a system problem. No. That's not the same thing. It's different to acknowledge that there are circumstances that created a pathway that you took.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
That's okay. Blame is the situation. That's the problem.
Sure.
He blamed her, and he wasn't exactly wrong. He screams at her, "You went to the store twice in 2 weeks and we told you not to." Okay, he wasn't totally wrong. But the problem is that they're in the situation because they're criminals.
Right. Well,
see the difference?
Yeah. They're in this. Well, and you know what? Khalil was going to do that to Yusuf.
Anyways,
he was milking Yusuf for all that he was good for, and then he was going to steal the money. This just happened to be the moment when he's going to steal the money.
Exactly. So if they had laid accountability for the fact that they were, desperate for money and poor on the system, and started paying attention to where their agency could contribute to change and their own well-being by dealing with the negative circumstances that really were against them, then they wouldn't have been putting themselves in the position of being a criminal, which they are fully responsible for.
Ding, ding, ding. You got it. So, cheers. What are you losing out on when you blame other people? You're losing out on a chance to grow for personal growth. You're losing out on having power over your situation. You're losing out on empathy. Mm-hmm. You're losing out on the positive influence that you can have on people around you.
Yeah.
These are the things you're losing out on.
You're losing out on it.
So I felt for Emily as an artist without time or money for her art. So, and a little more art could have helped her mental health a little bit.
Oh, right.
Mm-hmm. Oil Pixel has a little article about how great art is for your mental health. That whether you're creating it or observing it or interacting with it in some way, it's really good for you. That it reduces the stress hormone cortisol and releases endorphins, which help you combat stress and pain.
Yeah.
So creating art, even if you're not good at it, even if it's not like fine art or great art, if you suck at it, it doesn't matter. If you're enjoying doing it, that's great. If you enjoy looking at art in a museum, then it's a stress reliever and good for your mental health. So it doesn't have to be sculptures or paintings. Art can be anything. It can be something you're talented at or something you just enjoy doing. You don't have to be talented at it, but it can be cooking or writing or photography or gardening or comedy or making podcasts or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, whatever it is that makes you feel a little better and is productive in some way. It can be art.
Yes, create.
That's right.
Be a maker.
That's right.
Of some sort.
That's right.
But also, like, I just feel like, okay, like, all right, we talk about doom scrolling, right? Don't doom scroll. Comedy scroll.
Oh, there
Art
you go.
Scroll. Go watch. This is why ASMR was so popular, because you told me this, watching somebody do something they're good at is amazing. Like, you talked about one time watching people who cut hair.
Yeah.
And how satisfying it was. Because watching somebody do something they're good at is like really exciting. Don't doom scroll, like art scroll.
There we go.
Right?
Excellent.
This is what social media is for.
That's right. It's what it should be for.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. Real life.
Ooh.
So we're going to chat about background checks a little bit more.
Oh, okay.
So if you're an employer in a professional setting, you have to get permission. Say it again. It is really crucially important that you get permission. Can you run a background check on another person? And the short answer is yes. The ethical answer is And you should know, particularly if you're an employer, there could be legal implications for running a background check. So basically, if you have the person's name and where they live, You can run a background check.
Yeah.
Anybody can do it. There's 1,000 different places on the internet.
Yeah, you can just have that
where
done.
you can run a background check. And basically, it's all public record stuff.
Right.
It's their public social media. It's public arrest records, if there are any. It's what kind of house do they own? What kind of car do they own? All of these are public records things. So...
And if you're searching for a job, you should know that, like, pay attention because everything's online, right?
Right.
And so I've been applying for jobs, right? And so recently, and so I know that the submit button stays gray until you click a box that gives them permission. So, and if you're like on autopilot, just click all the boxes that you have to click. Know that one of them is going to give permission for that background check.
Right.
Every time.
Yep. That is true not only for job applications, but tenants. So if you're renting a house, you can run a background check, but you have to get explicit permission for that background check, including their credit record.
Okay.
So if you're going to rent somewhere,
you have to have all that.
Yeah, you want to make
checked.
sure it's all squared away. What are some reasons you might want to do it? Like you might have personal reasons. You're on a dating app. You want to know...
That was my question. My next question was, can you run something on like a potential partner or ex-partner or,
Yeah, basically, as long as you're not using it to employ them or rent them a place, you can...
Then it's legal.
Then it's fine.
Okay.
As long as you're not also using it to... be disruptive in their life in some way.
Okay.
So if you run a background check and you find on that ex and you find out that he had a criminal record that you didn't know about when you were dating and he was mean to you when you broke up, you can't then call his employer and tell them.
Okay. Yeah. All right. See,
there's
the rules.
That is a legal implication that you can't, if you just want to know for you and like warn the next girl, you can do that. You can do
Well, I was
that.
thinking, I don't know why, but like I thought about custody battles with small children.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
well, that's if your lawyer's doing their job, they're going to find all that out anyway.
That's true too.
So that's their professional thing. You let the lawyers deal with it. It is worth it to pay the lawyers.
Yeah. This is what they went to school for.
That's right.
Let them do what they're good at.
That's right. Babysitting is a gray area.
Oh, that's a good question.
Because you're employing them. So if you're going to do a background check on a babysitter, you should probably get written permission.
But get written permission and please just do it.
Yeah, just do it.
Yeah. Generally.
You can also self-check so you can see whether there's something out there that a potential employer or potential landlord might find out about you so you can deal with it. If it's erroneous, then you can try and get that taken off.
Right.
If it's not erroneous, you can maybe include in your cover letter.
That's smart.
Here is this information that I would like for you to know. Right. That's the tap dance.
Yeah. It is hard. Yep. I feel bad for having to. I feel bad for people who have to do that tap dance. And yet I also understand the need for it in some way.
Well, I mean, it all depends on the kind of job.
I just feel bad for like our society rewards extroversion.
Sure.
And so those who are extroverted and somehow charming are much better at talking about their youthful indiscretions and using all the euphemisms and making it a big laugh fest. And those who are far more introverted or introspective or maybe feel like a lot of shame over things that have happened and don't want to deal with it anymore, like it's triggering for them to have to talk about it. And they're never going to overcome the candidate who has the same issues but happens to be extroverted.
Right.
So I have compassion for that, I guess.
Yeah, I do too. So what even is aggravated assault? So we learn at the beginning that she says that she had a DUI, which may be true.
Right.
But there was also an aggravated assault charge, which is really the felony charge that is causing her a lot of problems.
Right.
Searching for gainful employment.
Yeah.
And we don't find out till later that was an abusive situation with a boyfriend.
Which is another reason I'm so like, ugh.
Yeah.
For her. You know, like on her behalf.
Yeah. So there are misdemeanor and felony aggravated assault situations in California. This is from Shoes Law. They've been quite a helpful.
Ooh.
We had them last time too.
Oh,
they had a
yeah,
Shoes
okay,
Law.
that's right.
Yeah. So there isn't actually a specific crime called aggravated assault.
Okay, so this is one of those general
It's
TV
one
terms?
of those. So there are aggravated assault crimes under California law, which include assault with a deadly weapon, with a firearm, likely to cause great bodily injury, assault with caustic chemicals, and a deadly weapon on school employees have their own special designation.
Oh, that's so sad.
It is sad. But basically, aggravated assault is the means to hurt someone very severely.
Okay.
Even if you don't.
What?
Yeah. So.
Okay, well, okay.
So
all right,
like,
that makes sense because I know that if you were like, say, rob a store, there's a difference between that and robbing it with a gun. Even if you didn't pull the trigger, you're still armed.
Right.
Robbery versus burglary or robbery or whatever.
Right.
Okay.
Somebody's in the road and you're mad at them and you drive your car at them. They jump out of the way.
It's still aggravated assault.
Still because you could have you have the potential to cause great bodily injury.
Okay, this makes sense. So basically, when she defended herself, she defended herself with the threat of a weapon,
right, or of some kind. It may have been mace. It may have been a taser. It may have been a car. It may have been a baseball bat.
Right. And because of that, that's a whole nother.
Yeah. There's a lot here.
And see, that's where I desperately want her to have the tap dance ready.
Right.
Like, rehearse it. I don't care. Pull a tear out. Pull a leg hair. Pull a Joey.
Have a needle, a tack in your shoe.
Yeah, something.
Pretend you're trying to beat the lie detector test.
Lie detector test, right? Like something just to say like, yes, this happened to me. You know, I don't know, like, I just feel so bad for people who aren't extroverted enough or have dealt with it or healed enough to be able to tell that story without it just crushing them. You know, but then she's going to sit in an office with this, well...
She didn't want to work there anyway, let's be honest.
Well, no, and that's hard, but...
Yeah. But I get it. So, student debt. You said you weren't going to talk economically. I'm going to talk economically.
Yeah, okay, let's do it.
So, student debt has a huge impact on the economy.
So huge.
I mean, it's good that there are people who are intelligent and need assistance in order to pay for a higher education, that they are people who can genuinely benefit society, need that higher education to be their most productive self. Not everybody needs that, but some people do. And unfortunately, having this large amount of debt really drags down the economy. It slows the growth of new small businesses. According to lendingtree.com, the Education Data Initiative says that people who have high student loan debt are far less likely to start a new business because starting a new business means you're going to incur debt. You're not going to make a profit for a while. And so when you have less entrepreneurial projects like this, that means that there are less jobs being created, because when you start a new business, maybe it's just you and maybe it's just you and one other person or whatever. And then eventually it's going to grow and you're going to have other employees, but having high amounts of debt means that we are missing some of those opportunities. That same organization, the EDI, says that students who have debt are 36% less likely to purchase real estate.
That has been a big sticking point with the whole generation of school debt situation. And the New York Times has had some interesting articles about the outliers of that, about the differences between even the quote elder millennials and then the younger millennials, and how that has changed between even within that generation, which just shows you how volatile things change faster. And then it's so hard to keep up with. It's just, wow.
Well, and it's not just that they can't qualify for loans. They might be able to qualify for the loan. They just can't afford to make a house payment and a student loan payment.
Right. Like, so for a while there, the problem was that they didn't meet the debt to income ratio because of the loans. So some of that resolved. And then it was, well, now the economy, the rate of housing costing upwards of 40 to 50% of a person's income instead of 20 to 30.
Right.
Then plus the rate of the student loan. Now you're right. They can't even make the monthly payment even if they were to qualify.
Right.
It's
a challenge.
It's a quagmire.
Dropping homeownership means that investment firms and other loaning facilities are able to loan less money. They're less able to do these investments. So that's a drag on the economy. It makes it harder to weather a recession.
Oh, yes.
Because people have a hard time building up an emergency fund. You know, if you listen to financial experts, they always tell you need to, save for retirement, and you need to, which is another thing that suffers when when students have high student loan debt. They're not saving for retirement. You need to save for retirement. You need to build your emergency fund.
Yes.
It's hard to do that when you're also thinking, boy, I'd like to buy a house. Boy, I'd like to pay rent. Boy, I'd like to eat.
Right. Yeah. Because there used to be, and I say used to be because things have been a-changing, but so you had your retirement savings, then you had your like general savings, which was supposed to be like your 3 to 6 months of income that you have on hand at any given time to weather, loss of job, et cetera, or like illness, yada, yada. Then you have your like little savings, right? Your $1,000 to $5,000 savings for things like that massive car repair or things like going wrong with the house that are like within that range. A lot of people don't actually separate those savings accounts.
Right.
But those are like sort of the main elements that make up your savings. How are you supposed to get there when 50% is going to rent or homeownership, which used to be different? It used to be like, okay, well, rent might cost you 40%, but home ownership is going to cost me 20% per month or 30%, so you save money, quote, per month, and you gain an asset. Not so much anymore. So like, it's just, how are you ever supposed to? And then, so one bad thing happens.
Right. And then you're done. It tamps down consumer spending.
Oh, yeah.
Because you have less extra money to spend on things. And in a consumer-driven economy, which is what the United States operates in, when you tamp down the ability for people to have discretionary funds, that is bad on our economy. It delays traditional life milestones. People are putting off marriage, putting off buying a house, putting off having children. All of those things are fine if that's your choice. But when it becomes an economic choice, then it's a problem. It shifts the power away from students. So if all you're doing is working to service your loans, you don't have the ability to look for a job that really fulfills you and take a little bit of less money in hopes that you'll be able to grow in that career because you have to pay off your loans.
Right.
Yeah. So you have people ending up in jobs that they're not well suited for, and therefore they're very unhappy.
Which is a ripple effect in
all the rest
world.
of the economy.
Yeah.
It has racial and economic justice impacts because low income families and students of color typically end up having to take the largest amount of loans.
Right.
Now, of students who take loans, about 38%, I don't have this exact figure, 38 to 40%-ish, I'll have it on our social media, don't finish. So they've incurred debt, and then, like Emily did, then don't have a degree with which to service that debt. 50% of the people who default on their loans didn't get the degree. So you have about 40% of people who don't finish and then they still have debt.
Okay.
But of all the people who default on their loans, about half of them did not finish their degree. Wow. Bad. It's really awful.
Yeah, because like in her case, and it's not uncommon, she had to take a break from college to take care of family.
Yeah.
My dad had to do that.
Yeah.
But at that time, that was a different generation. He was born
Right.
in 41 for reference, and it was a different generation. And so his dad paid by the month.
Uh-huh.
Right?
Yeah.
That's how it was. But when his daddy died, he came home to take care of his mom. And, so he had to take a break. He ended up going back and doing things later. But like if he was part of our generation and had to do that, he would have had to take a loan to go in the first place.
Right. Yes.
Which means he would have been in debt when he came home to take care of his mom.
Yep.
And let's not act like this isn't a normal story.
I mean, there are good reasons to take loans.
Yeah.
Is if you finish your degree, you do have a substantially higher income.
Yes,
So
you do.
The median weekly wage, and this is in January of 2023, so recent. If you have a high school diploma, your median weekly wage is $626.
Okay.
If you have a bachelor's degree, that goes up to $1,334. Wow. So it is a big jump.
It is a big jump.
Now, you have a master's degree and a terminal professional degree, a little more, but they're not as big a jumps.
Right.
So there are reasons to do it if you can finish.
Mm-hmm. If you can finish.
If you can finish. The U.S. is trying to pass some provisions about what constitutes an independent contractor in this country.
Okay.
So last October 2022, the U.S. Department of Labor unveiled a proposal that would classify many independent contractors as employees. So this is according to Restaurant Business Online. They were specifically talking about delivery drivers. Now, they tried to do this in California.
Okay.
To pass this legislation that would change the classification, and places like Uber.
I can imagine that would be like, oh wait, our whole business model.
Yeah, exactly. Got it tamped down, but there's still a federal level. Okay. And as of April, it had not been enacted yet. It had not passed, but it's still possible. So there's still a possibility that could happen. So they found that even dishwashers were being classified as independent contractors so that they wouldn't have to get paid overtime.
Oh, see, now, No.
Exactly. So there's Flex, which is a group representing app-based rideshare and delivery companies, is looking at this. And the CEO, Kristen Sharp, had this to say: as this process continues, our focus remains on advocating for millions of app-based earners who choose this work because of the flexibility it provides. We will continue to ensure that any final policy preserves these independence that the workers want. So I think that is an important distinction.
It is a distinction.
We really need to offer people the opportunity to have a gig economy.
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly.
That I only have this many hours to devote to this. My schedule isn't as flexible as I'd like, or it's very flexible, but I don't know when I'll have the flexibility to do this, you know, or
it's unpredictable.
Right. Yeah. It's unpredictable, and I can just pick up a shift whenever I have time. And I can stop working when I want. So I think it's important to do that. But the proposal has 6 economic realities that help determine a worker's status. Basically, the less control you have over your job and the more important you are to the business operating, then the more likely you are to need to be an employee.
Right. That makes sense.
Right. Do you have a lot of opportunity to control your profit or loss? If you don't, you're not an independent contractor.
Right.
Yeah. How much investment does it require?
Ooh.
You know, do you have to be there at a certain time every day? Do you have to have special skills?
Yeah.
Then you need to be an employee. How permanent is this relationship? Do you both have a going concern that you're going to work there every single day or at a regular time every single week? Then you should be an employee. Do you have a lot of control over determining your schedule and what you do and what your workload is? If you don't, you should be an employee.
Exactly.
How integral is your job to the business functioning? If it is imperative that you are there to do your shift,
right,
then
you're an employee.
Then you're an employee.
Right.
Do you have a special skill that the company can't do without? You're an employee.
Yeah, that's good. I like that list.
Yeah, me too.
I like it.
Oh, police hardly ever solve credit card fraud. This is why it's really widespread. So, Lantern Credit has a whole article about it that, credit card skimming's harder than it's been.
It does not feel
it
that
doesn't
way.
feel like it, but when we have things like chips and stuff like that, then it tends to make it harder. And Apple Pay,
yes,
or wireless payment,
right?
It makes it much more difficult.
Yeah.
So a lot of credit card scams are happening via phishing or hacking.
Yeah.
Less than 1% of credit card cases are solved by police. Unless it's a family member who stole your card, basically police aren't going to solve it.
Yeah, no, just you're gonna have to just deal with it.
But most cases, it's going to be the credit card company or their insurer that is going to solve this, and they have ways of doing that. It's all covered in this article. It's not super exciting, but tracking down credit card fraud is boring. You don't say. So, but they will turn it over to the FBI.
Okay.
If it meets certain criteria, like if it crosses state lines within the United States.
Well, then I don't know why they aren't making more progress on this scam that got me. Let me tell you something. If you have a credit card and you have a charge on it called Prime Video with some numbers after it, and it's a Washington phone number, it's a scam.
Really?
It's a scam. It's a scam. That is not Amazon.
Wow.
It's called Prime Video, but it's not Amazon. And they will charge, they're one of those operations that does the small amounts a lot. So it looks like, as you're scanning through, just if you do a lot of grocery shopping on Amazon or like subscription based for your household goods, pet foods,
you rent a movie or whatever,
or you rent movies from Amazon or anything like that, you can overlook it. We overlooked it for a long time, 3 card numbers ago, because we had a property. And so it was common that because we used a Fire Stick,
right,
to provide access to all of the streaming services.
Right.
Sometimes, we felt like, we must have left our Prime logged in and they must have rented something. Right? Okay. All right. Fine. Well, no, that's not what it was. They charge anywhere between $4 and $11, and it's always a very specific amount, and that's how it gets passed to you. They don't charge $12. They charge like something like $11.34. Right? $4.68. Right? So it looks like a regular charge.
Right.
And if you're not paying attention to that, they'll do that forever. And
wow.
We got rid of a card number, got a new card, started it again. Reported all the fraud, got a new card number. This past time I talked to the bank, I said, what is happening? And she was like, well, what they do is they say, okay, Prime Video, and then they put an asterisk and a whole new set of numbers, and then we can't catch it, so we don't decline the charge because it's not the same, quote, seller we blocked before. And they have no way. But if you go online and look at like some of those sites that help you say, hey, is this fraud or not? There's a ton of people out there who are being hit by this across the world.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yep.
And they can't hardly catch them.
No, I'm like, where's the FBI on this?
Yeah.
I need some really great accounting heroes to come in here with some super sleuths and take this operation down.
Wow.
I'm tired of getting new numbers. The banks are going to decide they care when people stop using them.
Well.
Because I'm on my 3rd card number. They can't catch it. Guess what hasn't been charged? Apple.
Yeah.
Okay? So just to kind of put an example out there, the banks are going to start caring when certain services provide enough security to avoid it, and they don't.
Right. We're going to end on a lighter note. So in the car theft with the credit card thing, there's a man and he's hitting on Emily because she's adorable. But he knows her name is Jennifer.
Right.
And he tells her she should go by Jen because Jennifer makes her sound old. Did you not catch this
noticed
part?
that, but I didn't notice it.
Well,
What?
Jennifer has been one of the most popular names in the last 100 years. And specifically from 1970 to 1984 is when we saw the great glut of Jennifers. Jennifer means fair or soft. It's a variation of the name Guinevere, which I didn't know.
That makes sense.
There was a pink Power Ranger named Jennifer.
Okay. Jen.
Uh-huh. And then cheekily, from 1996 to 2000, there was a early website, the Society for Preventing Parents from Naming Their Children Jennifer. It was created by 3 Jennifers: Jennifer Farwell, Jennifer Rich, and Jennifer Ang.
Oh my goodness.
And they were tired from having been children and being in workplaces where they had to go by Jennifer F, Jennifer R, and Jennifer A.
Yep.
Stop naming your daughters Jennifer is what they wanted to do. So,
I have a friend, we called her Jen. Or actually, I guess when we were younger, we called her Jenny. And then it was Jen.
Yeah.
And I think she goes by Jennifer now.
Okay.
To like people who didn't know her when she was, a teenager.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, Jen.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a very popular name.
It was a very popular name. So if you go from the youngest people to the oldest people in the area of time where they had the largest, you're at least almost 40.
At least.
I mean, 84. So you'd be 39. Anywhere up into your mid 50s is going to be the largest generation of people named Jennifer. I think when most of you are over 40, that is when the name becomes an old lady name.
Oh no.
Christy is an old lady name.
Is it? Oh no.
Nobody names their kid Christine or Christy or Krista or Crystal
It
hardly
wasn't
anymore.
At the time, I guess. I mean, my name has been old for a long time.
Yeah, but it wasn't as common either. So
it wasn't. But my full name, which nobody calls me.
Right.
Because Jackie is Jackie.
Right.
But my full name, as my mother will, from the grave, require me to say correctly at this very moment. All right. Is French.
Yes.
It's not the one people know of. It's Jacqueline.
Yeah. It's the qua. You get the qua.
Jacqueline. And she said it just like that. Jacqueline. Like with the Jacqueline. Jacqueline. Oh. And yes, she somehow did it with a Southern accent. And that I will never be able to replicate. But Jacqueline. And so, but nobody I don't know. So that doesn't feel as old, I guess. Because it's not many people have the French iteration.
I think it's when you have a glut of people.
Yes. In a very short time frame.
I would just like to point out, though, it's mostly women's names that end up sounding like old people's names.
Oh, is it? Are we sure?
Esther, Bertha. Nobody names their kid Bertha.
Bertha. That's rough.
It's an awful name, but it was popular in like the 1900s, 1920s.
Yeah, I'm trying to think right now. Like Theodore. Yeah, Theodore, Teddy, Ted.
Ish. But you don't hear a Theo and automatically assume he's an old man. You know what else was a popular name in that time frame with Jennifer? Michael.
Oh, well.
Michael doesn't sound like an old man name.
It doesn't.
I think the more common a woman's name is, the more likely it is to be thought of as an old man name, and the more or an old woman name, and the rarer a name is, the more likely it is to be thought of as an old man name.
Oh,
isn't that interesting?
Yes, because like all of a sudden I'm like, well, Otis. Yeah, that's old, but you don't hear that often,
and it's rare.
You know,
I don't know what that has to say. It just now occurred to me that this is a thing.
Something about youth and I don't know, staying perky.
This is where I'm like, this is percolating. I wish I had more to go.
Our listeners are just going to have to wait in on this conversation because it cannot be done now.
Right.
But we're going to have to stop talking now.
Yes. Right after I tell you what's next. Next time, The Nurse on Netflix. It's based on a true story. There's a Denmark nurse with a sinister side.
I can't wait.
I'm looking forward to this. It's going to be another dark one. We'll get back to some funny stuff soon. But
yeah. But right now,
this one's dark.
Commiserate with us in the dark.
That's right. Thank you so much for listening. We know you make a choice when you listen to us, that we don't just come on the radio. Tell a friend, because I promise you it is way more fun if you can talk about an episode with a friend after you've both listened. So do it. Rate and review wherever you get your podcasts. Get that lady who said we talk too much about jibber jabber. I'm like, well, all of it's related. Are you kidding? Exactly. I'm like, all of it's related in some way.
I think she meant to watch a TV show.
I mean, for real. Whatever. But go rate and review so that one gets pushed to the back and people don't see it so much.
You're wonderful, and we enjoy talking with you.
Exactly. Until next time, be safe, be kind, and wash your hands. Bum, bum, bum. Da, da, da.